All right, what's going on, everybody? Really excited to be back here in the film room today to be taking a look at Cincinnati left guard Evan Tengesdahl. Really one of, college football's breakout players on the offensive line. I really believe, he's a redshirt sophomore, first year full-time starter, played, 127 snaps last year as a redshirt freshman, full-time starter this year, left guard, like we talked about. We're talking about kind of this mixture of, been in the program for multiple years, but has multiple years left of developmental potential while being a starter and playing well. Like, let's not forget about that, right? To be a breakout player, you actually have to be playing well and performing to a level of, meeting expectations. And so I'm really excited to dive in to his film. We're going to take a look at him, like I said, left guard, right? This is their game against Kansas. And just a really, really good first rep that I want to start with, right? He's really just kind of jump setting this defensive tackle, and he's going to get hands-on and bring the fight to him, right? We're going to see 92 try to get this swipe and try to swipe the hands over again, right? He's trying to work that outside corner, trying to work that outside shoulder rather, and try to soften that edge, right? Obviously, guards don't have the same type of edge that the tackles have, right? You talk about rushing an offensive tackle as an edge rusher off the edge, as a 5-tech and beyond. It's a different process than this 3-tech right here. But either way, he's still trying to work that outside shoulder because that's his rush lane, right? He's going to try to club. He's trying to club and rip, but it's just there's nowhere to go, right? Because Evan gets his hands on and shuts that down quickly, right? Stays engaged. We talked about, getting that club. You could see here, I would pause it perfectly. He's trying to get that club, and then the rip or the swipe is going to come with that left arm. The synchronization of it from the pass rusher isn't bad, right? The timing is good. You talk about rushing with a plan. He's doing it. He realized he's getting kind of this short set, this jump set, times it well. Now, obviously, the tough part is the guy across from him blocking him is doing a really good job too. So aside from what the defensive tackles try to do from a pass rush perspective, we know that Evan is prepared for it, and he's shutting it down, getting hands on, playing with a good base, staying square, keeping everything in his cylinder, right? Hips and shoulders, everything kind of marrying up, right? You never want your hips or your shoulders to be disassociated when you're pass protecting, really any part of offensive line play, but especially in this rep right here, right, where he just has a solo pass blocking rep, but everything is staying within his cylinder, within his framework. He gets a little broken at the waist a little bit, but it's not bad, right? It's not a detriment. It's not something that becomes, a huge negative. And even if you were facing a higher caliber of defensive tackle, it's probably not something that becomes, a loss, so to speak. So anyway, really good job of keeping, like I said, keeping everything in his cylinder, bringing the fight to him, being active with his hands, getting hands on, and just being quick too, right? We see these quick movements that are happening between the two of them. Defensive tackles throwing out quick moves, Evans responding with quick handwork, quick, re-engagements, keeping his feet active, playing with that good base like we talked about. Again, a little bit of a waist bending happening here, but it doesn't matter because he's shutting it down. The defensive tackle is gaining no depth and no ground in his pass rush rep. I mean, just a really, really good, really good representation of, what kind of pass protecting looks like as a guard. Obviously, with so much offensive line, you'll get, you get jet protection and slide protection, half man, half slide, all that stuff. But when you're having to solo up and protect one-on-one against a defensive tackle, this is what you want it to look like, right? The defensive tackle's throwing out moves, comes into the rep with a pretty good plan, a good idea of what he wants to do and how he wants to execute it, but he literally gains no ground and no separation, no upfield vertical movement in the pass rush itself. So really good pass per rep to start. All right, we're going to stay here at this Kansas game because I really want to break this one down and show you guys a little bit of what he's doing really well. This time, instead of kind of just a static solo rush from Kansas, right, they're going to run this game. They're going to run this stunt, right, with the 3-tech. Going to be the pressure guy, right? Engage, give the edge rusher time to sell his vertical upfield, try to influence the tackle upfield so far, and influence him into his movements that the defensive tackle can loop around him, right? Call it tech stunt, tackle and exchange. Usually, the variety of different names for it. That's what I know it as, right? But it's, techs being the tackle goes first and the end's going to exchange around him, right? And you see that happening. Now, the end doesn't do a great job of giving enough of an upfield kind of sell or influence to try to counter back around. But while the 3-tech does a really good job of getting hands on and influencing Evan to engage in the block, right? He's getting hands on from the 3-tech. He needs to respond. He needs to pass protect. But He, I'm sure maybe out of the peripherals, he sees this end coming. But anyway, he feels the tackle giving up, and then boom, hands on, right? So he's seeing this, he's feeling it. You can tell that he's feeling it based off how he's reacting. He's not waiting for the crashing end to get into him before he shows any signs of recognition, right? We see the tackle get hands on. We can probably assume that he is seeing the end coming out of his peripheral vision, right? He sees him he's crossing that face of that offensive tackle, and we see, him opening. Boom. We see his eyes in his head working towards the end. Tackle's in a little bit of a compromised spot at this point. If you had a really super athletic defensive tackle, or if the end had done a better job of getting him upfield, this might have a chance to get home around the corner. But we see Evan pick it up seamlessly. I mean, he goes, there is very, very little hesitation, pause, very little time in between him blocking the 3-tech to him blocking the end, right? And I think that you can, even in layman's viewing, you can see that, right? You can see that there is very little, very short interval of time between him blocking that 3-tech and blocking that end, picks it up seamlessly, just kind of really almost carries him right into his recovery. And, we see him again playing with a good base. We'd like to see a little bit better power angle, but again, we see his hips. We see the extension of his hips. Good feet, good hands engaged, hands inside. Good athlete, right? Again, when you talk about playing with a base and keeping your feet engaged, keeping your hips engaged, keeping everything within your cylinder, there is an element of athleticism to those things. The better athlete you are, the easier it is to do all that. And then, the more kind of consistent pass pro victories you can create. So we're seeing that here in both phases, right? Both phases of defensive line play, whether it's just 4 down rushing the passer, or some sort of a stunt or twist, being able to pick that up and adjust to it. 2 really, really good reps start. All right, now I want to jump into the Iowa State game because I think they're a little unique in terms of their front guys, their down guys, right? They've some notable defensive linemen, particularly along the interior, and really just from a schematic standpoint, what they want to do with their front 7, with their linebacker play. Traditionally Iowa State, we kind of know, if you follow college football long enough, their front guys, their front 7, their down guys, they're all really good players, right? And they play well within a pretty unique scheme as well. So I think this is going to be a really good example of expanding upon what he does well, starting with this clip here. And you can see the way, like we talked about, right, the way Iowa State kind of aligns and fits to it. We see the bubbles that Cincy can run to, especially to the strong side, right, to the tight end side. We see that they're in, this kind of 5-05 front, not even a traditional tight front or anything like that. They're going to trust their linebackers to get where they need to go, and obviously 7's going to come down in the box too, it looks like, and be ready to defend the run. But we're going to see Evan again, left guard, right, uncovered, and he knows, and the good thing with him and the way this run is designed to go is he's got to get to the second level, and he doesn't have any obstruction. So that's starting off on a good note. We're going to see him get all the way up to 47. And 47, for those of you who maybe don't follow college football super, super closely, 47 is a pretty good linebacker. So a clip, a play, a player that, is usually having success reading these types of things and reacting. And this play doesn't look like much. At least it may not look like it on the surface, but again, when we're looking at all parts of the player, we want to see him come off the rock, take a good, working to the second level for guards is imperative, right? Especially when you're uncovered like this. You have to get to that second level. You have to make those second level blocks. They're so impactful, and we're seeing that here. And the science and execution behind the technique, right? Taking good angles to the ball, playing with leverage, right? Anytime you watch offensive line play or follow offensive line play long enough, you'll hear, leverage, technique, angles, all of those things. Most specifically leverage and angles. And we're seeing it here, right? That first step puts him in good position. He's eyeing 47. He's staying flat enough. He's not getting too far, too high, too low, too far up, too far back. And we're seeing he's getting hands on, right? He's not blocking in the back. It's not a block in the back. He's getting to a point to where he can out leverage this guy and kind of wall him off and then create a natural cutback lane for this running back, which is where, it's kind of designed to hit. It looks like, right, running back is reading, he's getting eyes to the second level. He's seeing the flow of the second level, where he sees 19 and 7 and 41. They're cut off. And 99, it looks like, is getting reached a little bit, or is engaged enough to where the running back can work past him. 95, and then obviously, 31 comes in here, makes a pretty good play. But we see him walling this linebacker off and usually, really just using his momentum against him to push him out of the play. So a really good rep in terms of run blocking and seeing, when it comes to run blocking, it's it's not all about base and down blocking and wiping guys off the face of the earth. There's an element of working to the second level, getting out in space and things of that nature. And I think that's a really good start and really kind of, highlights what he does well in terms of, an athletic ability. All right, this next rep really contributes to what we talk about in terms of being a complete player, a complete offensive lineman. We saw the two different types of pass per reps. We started off with, the first run blocking clip where he's working to the second level and having to engage with second level defenders. This time around, it's going to be a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, and I love this play. I'm going to let it run, and we're going to see it here. Bam! Snatch that dude, whip him around, seal him off, help seal and create a run lane. I really, really like this rep. I was pretty fired up the first time I watched it because we see him come off the ball with a sense of urgency and engage with a sense of urgency. And he's getting hands-on. He's torquing that guy, turning him out. Again, not to sound like a broken record, but you see everything within his cylinder, right? He's engaged. He's creating extension and separation with his hands while he's engaged. And the defensive end actually is doing a pretty good job of battling back. But it doesn't matter because of the extension, the separation that's created, and the position that Evan has, he's achieved with that, right? He's trying to seal him, wall him off. The running back is going to cut, work or take his path off of that or behind him. It looks like it's just going to be some sort of off tackle run potentially based on this still image right here. But you see Evan, right? This is a really good position to be in with him walled off, hands engaged, right? We talked about creating separation. He's got that outside hand on the outside shoulder. He has, there's some elements of his chest being given away in the defensive end, achieving kind of the inside pad level, inside grip. But nonetheless, it's not a, it's not a detriment. It's not a detrimental factor. He's not gonna lose the rep at this point because of it, because of the way his body's positioned, everything within the cylinder. Again, like we've said a million times, and just from there, staying engaged, right? The defensive end, like we talked about, he battles back, he gives some knockback. We see that he's battling, he's engaged, but Evan is again, everything is married and working together, right? Hands, hips, feet, everything. I keep pausing at the worst times, but everything is engaged, and add an opportunity to really just eliminate him, turn him out, seal the lane. Look at all the space this running back has to run. Now the tackle does a good job of kind of helping chip and pass him off, get hands on, and he's working up to 26 right here. But we see that this right here, I mean, you can see the transition, right, of him striking and turning, torquing him, keeping everything engaged, sense of urgency, all those things, right? So again, playing near the line of scrimmage like we talked about, as opposed to the first rep where he had to work and climb to the second level. We're seeing all the different things that he can do. Really, really good rep and example of taking on a defensive end, playing near the line of scrimmage, where contact and everything is happening a lot faster. All right, we're gonna end on this clip right here because we have to put an end to it at some point. Because I could watch this all day. With the stuff that he and the team have done, as they've gotten into Big 12 play specifically, has been very, very impressive. Super fun to watch offensively with tons of playmakers, good offensive line. I mean, you talk about kind of like a total team package. They have it. Cincinnati has it. And offensively, a ton of fun to watch. But we're going to end this right here. See another example of him kind of working along the lines of scrimmage. And we see Iowa State. They're coming out in this, that similar front to where they have kind of like this 7-tech to the strength, to the field as well. Right? He's kind of inside shoulder, that tight end. We have kind of this 4-tech, probably even like a 5. If we're being honest, isn't like he's totally true head up, but however you want to describe it. And then they have what's basically looks like, these 20 backers, and they're called 20 backers because they're aligned as what would be 2-techs, right? So your 2-tech would be head up on the guards, on Evan and our right guard. And that's how the linebackers are serving and acting as these 20 backers, as they're called, because they're going to serve as the guys, to take on these bubbles, right? These big bubbles that we've mentioned earlier, they usually want to run to. And again, Iowa State's always been kind of unique in how they fit the run and align to the run. But we're going to see Evan kind of working, he's trying to get to the 0-tech. And I'll let it run one more time just because it's entertaining to watch, right? As soon as he strikes him, movement, right? And look at this running lane. And we'll get a really good view of it here too, because we'll see them packing the box, right? We see the tight end in line. We kind of have the wing behind it, right? They're in the pistol formations. They're going to pack this box, try to account for the numbers. And again, we're going to see the offensive line do their thing. We're going to see the safety walk down, right? He's accounting for the run. He's seeing the wing kind of the short motion. Then he's coming back up almost to like reverse and lead out. We see him run with the run action, and we see the quarterback pull, and I mean, just look at this hole, right? We can even let it run all the way through. We see how much how much space he has. A really well-designed run, well-blocked run. But you know, to get to Evans' part specifically, we saw the space that he cleared when he just absolutely struck that zero tech, right? That nose. We see him take a good step again. Not really gaining, you know, he's not gaining a whole lot of ground with that first step, but it's not, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing or a negative thing. We see, but it's still like flat, right? You want it to be flat with him trying to reach that zero taking that nose. If for him to get there, it's got to be flat, right? It can't be too far upfield, can't be too far down, you know, too far back or too far up, because then it's going to put him, again, like we talked about when we watched him work to the second level, right, with leverage and angles. He's got to put himself in position to reach his assignments, and any type of step that's not as flat as this one is not going to put him in a good spot to do so. So we see that first step, boom, and he strikes this dude. I mean, talk about being a people mover and just moving him out of the way, power, explosion to help spring a big touchdown run. So, and his film has been so much fun to watch. Like, you know, like we've said, I could wax poetic about Cincinnati all day and the work that they've done and the work that Evan has done specifically, but really excited to continue following them along. I mean, they're very much in, you know, the playoff hunt, looking like a Big 12, you know, Big 12 power. So really excited to continue following them along and following Evan's journey along as well.